No one expects a single knock on a quiet autumn night to change the way they see someone forever. But that is exactly what happened the moment Leora opened the front door and found Oren, her best friend's older brother, standing there with that hesitant half-smile she had never been able to read. The porch light glowed softly behind her, and the cool breeze brushed past her shoulders, but nothing felt as startling as the way his eyes held hers, as if he had been waiting for this moment longer than he wanted to admit. Leora hadn't seen Oren much since he left for a distant research internship. He had always been the calm one, the steady one, the one who spoke gently and observed more than he revealed. Growing up, she always saw him as the responsible, older sibling of her mischievous best friend Sarah, someone reliable, someone steady, someone safe. But tonight, Oren looked different, more thoughtful, more unsure, and somehow that uncertainty made Leora's heart trip over itself. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," he said softly, pushing a hand through his dark hair. "I just got back into town, and, well, Sarah said you were here." Leora stepped aside, letting him enter. Her voice stayed calm, though her pulse fluttered strangely. "Of course you can come in. It's good to see you." Oren walked in with that careful posture he always had, as if he didn't want to shift the world too suddenly. The living room lamp glowed warmly, and he paused in its light, studying the framed photographs on the wall, memories of summers, birthdays, and late-night movie marathons the three of them shared. "It feels like everything's changed," he murmured. Leora tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at things unsaid. "I guess I'm still figuring that out." They sat across from each other, she on the couch, he on the old armchair Sarah always claimed was cursed because it creaked loudly every time someone leaned back. Tonight, it didn't make a sound. Oren stayed straight, hands resting on his knees, as if he was preparing for something serious. "So," Leora said lightly, "how was the internship? Sarah said you were working on some strange new energy model." That pulled a brighter expression from him. Oren loved science with a quiet passion that sometimes made him wander off mid-conversation, lost in his thoughts. "It was incredible," he said. "We were studying atmospheric fluctuations in remote regions. The readings were unusual, almost rhythmic, not random like you'd expect." His eyes softened. "But being away also made me realize things I didn't expect." Leora felt a small spark of curiosity. Like what? He exhaled slowly, almost as if he was afraid to let the words out too quickly. "You and Sarah visited the mountains last summer, right? She sent me pictures." He paused. "You looked happy. I liked seeing that." Her breath hitched in the slightest way. Oren rarely commented on personal things, and never with this kind of openness. She laughed lightly, trying to ease the sudden warmth rising in her chest. "We were happy. Sarah made us hike up a steep trail without warning. We almost collapsed." He chuckled, soft and deep, a sound she didn't realize she had missed. After a quiet moment, Oren's expression shifted. "Leora, I actually came because there's something I wanted to tell you before Sarah gets back tomorrow. Something I should have said earlier." Her heart tapped harder against her ribs. "What is it?" But Oren looked down at his hands, as if gathering courage grain by grain. "I'm not ready yet," he admitted quietly, "but I will be soon, I promise." A gentle unease drifted through the room, blending with curiosity and something warmer, something that felt like a beginning neither of them had prepared for. And as the clock ticked softly between them, Leora realized she had never seen Oren look so conflicted or so sincere. She didn't know it yet, But this moment, this fragile pause, was the first step toward a confession that had been waiting in the dark for a long, long time. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Oren stood, hesitating as if he wanted to say more, then whispered, "I'll tell you everything tomorrow. Just don't think too badly of me when you hear it." He left her with those words echoing in her chest, soft, uncertain, and impossibly intriguing. Most mornings felt predictable to Leora, but not this one. She woke with a restless pulse, the memory of Oren's unfinished confession tugging at her thoughts like a quiet melody she couldn't shake off. The sunrise slipped through her curtains in pale shades of gold, but instead of its usual comfort, it only reminded her that today, sometime soon, Oren planned to tell her whatever had been weighing on him, whatever he feared might change the way she saw him. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for that. She moved through the early hours on autopilot, making tea, tidying the small guest house she stayed in while visiting Sarah, and glancing toward the window far more often than she cared to admit. Her hands kept fidgeting, tracing the rim of her mug, tapping against the counter, twisting the ends of her sleeves. By mid-morning, she stepped outside to get some air, only to freeze when she nearly collided with Sarah herself, hauling a large suitcase, hair in a messy braid, breathless from the walk up the driveway. "Leora!" Sarah exclaimed, dropping the suitcase dramatically. "You will not believe the airport drama I just survived." Leora managed a smile, grateful for her friend's energy. "Lost luggage again?" "Worse," Sarah said, marching past her toward the porch. A flock of birds decided the runway was their personal hangout spot. Everything got delayed. Also, someone stole my trail mix. Despite her anxious heart, Leora laughed. Sarah swung the door open, then paused mid-step when she spotted the faint tension on Leora's face. "Okay, what's wrong? And don't even try the nothing answer. I know that look." Leora hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "Oren came by last night." Sarah blinked, then blinked again. "He did? Why? He was supposed to be settling in at home." "He said he needed to talk," Leora replied, "but he didn't get to the actual talking part." Sarah's eyebrows lifted with immediate curiosity. "Oh, interesting. My mysterious sibling strikes again." Leora felt her cheeks warm. "It wasn't like that." Sarah hummed, not believing her one bit. "Well, whatever dramatic secret he's hiding, it's probably something harmless. Oren's too gentle to drop anything explosive." That reassurance helped a little, but only a little. As the afternoon rolled in, the two spent time catching up, sorting Sarah's luggage disaster, and sharing stories that kept their laughter bouncing around the hallway. But beneath every moment, Leora felt a quiet anticipation building, like the air before a coming storm. She didn't see Oren until later, almost evening, when he finally walked up the path toward the house. His steps were slow, his expression thoughtful, and the moment Leora saw him, her heart gave a soft, uneasy tug. Sarah noticed the shift immediately and grinned. "I'm going to pretend I don't see whatever this is," she whispered to Leora. Then, louder, "I'll be inside unpacking." She vanished before either of them could respond. Oren stopped a few feet from Leora, hands tucked nervously into his jacket pockets. "Hey," he said quietly, "I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk." "I do," she answered, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. "Good," he exhaled, the tension in his shoulders visible even in the dimming light. "There's something you deserve to know. Something I should have said before I left for the internship." Leora waited, but Oren paused again, gaze drifting toward the porch railing as if searching for the right place to start. "When I was away," he said slowly. I kept thinking about a lot of things. About home, about Sarah, and about you. Her breath shivered in her chest. He swallowed hard. I didn't realize how much until I was gone. A soft wind passed between them, carrying the scent of pine and the faint chill of approaching dusk. Leora opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, unsure what words would even make sense. Oren looked up, meeting her eyes with a sincerity that felt almost fragile. I want to tell you the whole truth, but before I do, I need to know if hearing it will ruin anything between us, because that's the last thing I want. Her pulse flickered. Oren, I can't promise anything until I know what you're trying to say. He nodded, accepting that. Then let me tell you soon. Tonight, if you're willing. I just need a few moments to gather myself. He stepped back, offering a small, almost apologetic smile. I'll come find you after sunset. And before she could ask anything more, he walked away toward the edge of the property, disappearing into the soft shadows of the trees. Leora stood there, heart unsteady, wondering what truth could make someone as gentle as Oren hesitate so deeply. Sunset slipped across the sky like a quiet promise, painting the horizon with soft ribbons of coral and violet. Leora watched the colors shift from the porch steps, her hands clasped gently in her lap, her heart beating with a rhythm that made her feel both eager and unsteady. She kept replaying Oren's words from earlier. I'll come find you after sunset. It echoed through her mind with a weight that felt heavier the longer she sat waiting. Sarah had offered a distraction, board games, snacks, outrageous stories from her trip, but Leora couldn't hold her focus. Sarah noticed, of course, but instead of prying, she gave Leora a knowing smile and wandered off to video call a friend, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the growing hush of the evening. Fireflies began blinking near the edge of the yard, flickering in soft golden pulses. Normally, the sight would have calmed her, but tonight it only made her feel more aware of every passing moment. Finally, she heard footsteps. Approaching from the tree line. Oren stepped into view, his jacket draped over one arm, his expression half shadowed by the fading light. The seriousness in his gaze pulled a quiet breath from Leora's chest. Thank you for waiting, he said, stopping a few steps away. I said I would, she replied, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering inside her. He took a moment to look around the yard, as if drawing strength from the familiarity of home. Then he exhaled and sat on the porch step beside her, leaving just a small, respectful space between them. When I was away, Oren began softly, everything felt different. Not just because of the research or the long days, it was something else. He paused, folding his hands together the way he did when he was trying to steady himself. I kept thinking about the people I missed, and I realized the person I thought about the most wasn't who I expected. Leora felt her breath catch. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Oren's gaze stayed on the ground, as though the truth felt too heavy to lift. I tried to ignore it at first, he continued. It felt complicated. You're Sarah's closest friend. You've always been a part of this family in a way. I didn't want to risk making anything awkward or unbalanced. His voice wavered, but only slightly. But the longer I stayed away, the clearer it became. He drew a slow breath, then finally looked at her. I care about you, Leora, more than I ever planned to, more than I realized until distance made it impossible to deny. Her heart stilled before racing again. a careful, trembling beat. Oren swallowed. I don't expect anything from you. I don't want to confuse you or pressure you. I just couldn't keep it inside anymore. Not when it felt like the truth was pressing against every thought. Silence stretched between them, gentle, fragile, and full of emotion neither of them fully knew how to hold. Leora finally found her voice. Oren, why didn't you tell me before you left? He let out a faint, self-conscious laugh. Because I didn't understand it. And by the time I did, I was halfway across the country, staring at cloud patterns and pretending they were more important than what was in my chest. Her lips curved into a tiny, unbidden smile. That was Oren, earnest even in his nervousness. Do you regret telling me now? She asked quietly. No, he said instantly. I'd regret staying silent far more. The honesty in his tone sent a warm ache through her. She looked away toward the tree line, trying to steady her thoughts. Oren, you're important to me, more than I realized, too. But this is sudden, and I don't want to say something careless just because emotions are high. I don't want that either, he said, softly. They sat there, the evening settling around them, the scent of pine drifting on the breeze. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, Oren added. I just needed you to know the truth. Whatever happens next, I'll accept it. Leora's pulse shivered at the quiet sincerity in his voice. She wanted to reach out and ease the uncertainty in his eyes, but her thoughts were still tangled. Hope, fear, warmth, and confusion all swirling together like threads she hadn't yet unraveled. Before she could respond, a distant rumble echoed in the sky. Thunder, gentle at first, then sharper. Oren glanced upward. Looks like a storm's coming in. But the storm outside wasn't what had her heart trembling. It was the one inside, stirring stronger, deeper, and far harder to describe. And just as Leora opened her mouth to speak, a sudden flash of light shimmered behind the distant hills. Bright, strange, almost like a pulse of energy rather than lightning. Oren stiffened. His eyes widened with a recognition that sent a chill through her. Leora, that's not a storm, he whispered. The strange burst of light faded almost as quickly as it appeared, leaving the hills dim and hushed once more. But the look on Oren's face lingered, sharp, alert, and deeply unsettled. Leora rose to her feet slowly. Oren, what was that? He stood too, eyes fixed on the horizon, as if expecting the glow to return. We saw something like it during the internship, he murmured. Not exactly the same, but close. A sudden spike of atmospheric energy that didn't match any natural pattern we knew. That sent a faint shiver down her spine. Was it dangerous? He hesitated. Not exactly. Just unexplained. And it always meant something unusual was happening nearby. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't expect to see anything like it here, though. A cool gust brushed through the yard, stirring the trees. The world felt strangely hushed, as if listening. Leora wrapped her arms around herself. Should we tell Sarah? Not yet, Oren said gently. No need to worry her before we know what it is. He wasn't dismissing the concern, just trying to be thoughtful, the way he always was. Still, she could feel the tension radiating off him. They stood there in silence, watching the dim hills, waiting for another flash. But none came, just the soft hum of the wind through the pines. After a long moment, Oren turned to her, his expression calmer, but still clouded. Let's sit. We can talk inside where it's warm. Leora nodded, and they moved toward the porch. The creak of the steps felt grounding, familiar. Inside, the living room glowed softly under the warm lamplight. The distant sound of Sarah chatting animatedly on her call echoed faintly from the guest room, completely unaware of anything unusual. Oren sat on the edge of the armchair, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "I'm sorry our conversation got interrupted," he said quietly. "It's all right," Leora replied. "I'm still trying to take everything in." He nodded, understanding instantly. "I know I put a lot on you tonight." Leora sat across from him, the warm glow casting gentle shadows between them. "You were honest," she said softly. "I needed to hear the truth. I just didn't expect it." His lips curved slightly. "I didn't expect it either. Not when I first realized how I felt." The room settled into a gentle stillness, warm, fragile, full of unspoken emotion. Leora looked down at her hands. "I do care about you, Oren. I really do. I'm just scared of saying the wrong thing." "You don't have to say anything yet," he reassured. "Just knowing you're still willing to sit here with me, that's enough." His sincerity washed over her like a quiet comfort. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that. Another faint rumble sounded outside, distant, not thunder, but something softer, like the earth shifting somewhere far away. Leora's head lifted. There it is again! Oren stood slowly, walking to the window. It's the same direction. Whatever it is, it's not random. She joined him, standing beside him near the glass. The night beyond was cool and dark, only faintly lit by the porch light. The hills seemed completely still, yet something in the air felt charged. Then Oren spoke quietly, his voice a shade more serious. "During the internship, when we saw spikes like that, it usually meant the atmosphere was reacting to an object entering or leaving the region." He paused. "Not a plane, not weather, something else." Leora felt her breath catch again. "Like what?" He looked at her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "We never figured that out. That's what unsettles me." The quiet hum of Sarah's laughter in the other room suddenly felt very far away, replaced by a growing sense of mystery threading through the house. Leora stepped back, trying to calm the flutter in her chest. "Do you think it's related to why you came back early? You never explained that." Oren's expression tightened slightly, a subtle shift, but unmistakable. "That's part of what I needed to tell you," he admitted, "but I didn't want to overwhelm you in one night." Her heart trembled, the emotional tension curling tighter. "Oren, what happened out there?" He opened his mouth to answer. Then another flash lit the distant hills. Brighter! Sharper! Like a pulse echoing across the sky. "Leora!" He didn't look away from the window. "I think we should go see what that is. Not alone. With Sarah, too. If something's happening out there, we need to understand it." The glow faded again, leaving the landscape dark and still, but neither of them felt calm this time. Because something about that light didn't feel random, or natural, or accidental. It felt intentional. And Leora could sense, deep in her chest, that whatever it was would change everything, even the fragile hope blooming between her and Oren. The hills were quiet when Leora, Oren, and Sarah reached the old overlook, a place the three of them had visited many times over the years. But never like this, never with the night air humming gently beneath their feet, or the sky carrying a strange heaviness that felt like a held breath. Sarah shivered and folded her arms. "Okay, someone please tell me why we're out here instead of warm and safe inside. And why did the sky look like it just blinked at us?" Oren stepped ahead, scanning the horizon with a steady, searching gaze. "It wasn't lightning," he said gently. The readings we saw during my internship, they were similar. Atmospheric pulses that behaved like signals. Signals? Sarah repeated. Like someone sending messages? Maybe, Oren admitted. Or maybe the Earth responding to something we don't fully understand yet. Leora watched him, noticing the way his calm voice softened Sarah's nerves. Oren always carried himself this way, quiet, steady, reassuring. Even when uncertainty pressed close, he anchored the people around him. A soft breeze moved through the grass, brushing against their legs. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The world felt strangely peaceful, despite the unexplained energy earlier. Leora stepped closer to Oren. What now? He exhaled slowly. We wait a moment. The pulses earlier followed a rhythm. If they repeat, we'll know it's not a coincidence. Sarah paced behind them, muttering under her breath about late-night mysteries and emotional timing. But Leora stayed still, eyes lifted toward the dark sky, trying to quiet her racing thoughts. Then, a soft shimmer rippled above the distant hills. Not bright, not alarming, just a gentle wave of pale light, rising like a breath exhaled by the horizon. There, Oren whispered, exactly the same pattern we recorded. Leora felt awe push out her fear. It's beautiful. Sarah stepped up beside them, her earlier frustration dissolving into wide-eyed wonder. It looks like the sky's trying to whisper something. Oren nodded. That's what it felt like during the research, as if the world was sending out a quiet call. They stood together, watching the delicate rise and fall of the glow, subtle, steady, rhythmic. And slowly, the unease Leora felt earlier began to settle into something gentler, something almost serene. After a few minutes, the pulses faded completely, leaving the night calm once more. Sarah let out a deep breath. Well, that was less terrifying than expected. Weird, but kind of magical. She turned to Oren. So, you going to publish something? Discover a new natural phenomenon and become famous? Oren shook his head, smiling softly. I think it's simply something the Earth has always done, and we're only now paying attention. Sarah sighed dramatically. Scientists are too poetic for their own good. Then she stepped back toward the trail. I'm heading home before my fingers freeze. You two coming? Oren glanced at Leora. We'll follow in a minute. Sarah smirked knowingly. Of course you will. And with that, she disappeared down the path. Once she was out of sight, the quiet deepened. Leora warmed her hands against the sleeves of her jacket, her heart softening with every beat. So, the pulses, did you come home because of them? Oren hesitated, then nodded. Yes, the last reading I saw at the research station looked almost identical to the ones I grew up watching from this place. I realized I needed to come back to understand it better. But also, he looked at her with gentle honesty. I wanted to tell you how I felt before it was too late, before I hid behind work or distance again. Her breath caught, not with fear this time, but with something warm, like a quiet certainty rising inside her. Oren, she whispered, I was scared earlier, not because of what you said, but because I didn't know how to answer without hurting you. You could never hurt me by being honest, he replied softly. She stepped closer. When you left for your internship, I kept telling myself it didn't matter that you were gone, but it did, more than I wanted to admit. When Sarah sent you pictures, I wasn't smiling just for her. I wanted you to see it too. A quiet, hopeful light filled his eyes. Leora, I don't know where this goes, she said gently, But I want to find out. With you. Oren's shoulders loosened, his expression softening into something tender and relieved. That's more than I ever hoped for. They stood together, watching the calm horizon where the pulses had faded. No bright flashes now, no mystery pulling at them, just the quiet world settling back into stillness, as if giving them space to breathe. Leora felt the cool night air around them, the warmth of Oren beside her, and the certainty that whatever had happened tonight, whatever the sky had whispered, had led them to a truth they were both finally ready to face. Oren offered his hand, gentle and steady. She took it. Together, they turned toward the path home, the glow of the porch light waiting for them in the distance like a promise. A new beginning, quiet, hopeful, and theirs.